Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Secretary Kennedy, for appearing before our subcommittee today. As we consider the future of Americans' health in the Department of Health and Human Services, I appreciate the opportunity to discuss reforms that prioritize the health of our citizens while restoring transparency, accountability, and constitutional limits on federal power. For too long, federal health policy has been burdened by wasteful spending and ideological agendas, undermining the scientific integrity and public trust. I'm encouraged by this administration's efforts to end the politicization of our health agencies and to bring common sense and accountability back to HHS. I also support the Make America Healthy Again initiative, which addresses the consequences of misguided policies, poor nutrition standards, and harmful medical practices. Americans face record levels of obesity, chronic disease, mental illness, and pharmaceutical dependency. Secretary Kennedy, I commend your leadership in launching a commission to examine the root causes of these crises. But we cannot talk about restoring health without also confronting one of the most horrific scandals of our time, the trafficking and exploitation of children at our southern border, often under the watch of the very agency tasked with protecting them, HHS. The Biden administration dismantled critical safeguards, turning the Unaccompanied Alien Children program into a pipeline for abuse. These are not bureaucratic oversights. They are instances of state-enabled child trafficking, and they must end. I support the President's budget proposal to eliminate welfare benefits for illegal aliens and refocus the UAC program on its core mission, and that is protecting vulnerable children from trafficking, labor exploitation, and abuse. No taxpayer dollar should fund these horrors, and yet the Biden administration made the federal government the final link in the chain of child trafficking. So I want to ensure the money that we spend on health policy is guided by constitutional principles, rigorous science, and the interests of the American people. So my first question for you is, do you know approximately how many children over the last 4 years have gone missing or remain unaccounted for after being released by HHS? Have you looked into that?
The estimate, Congressman, from the Office of the Inspector General, and it's considered a very low estimate, is 291,000 children missing.
291,000 children
But the estimate, the actual numbers are probably much higher than that. They could go up to 500,000. And if you look at the grand jury report from Florida, what happened to many of those children is just horrific. They were my predecessor was deliberately employing a policy of speed over safety. So they waived all of the identification requirements for sponsors. Sponsors were not required to show valid identification. They were never fingerprinted, so we didn't know if they had criminal records. There was no DNA testing, so their claims that they were taking a family member were
dubious at best.
Yeah, they were dubious. And we in Cleveland, according to the grand jury testimony and the grand jury findings in Florida, there are so many episodes. One of them is a man in Cleveland who picked up a 16-year-old girl claiming to be her brother, raped her, impregnated her, put her in a home where she was being regularly raped of all men, and then got a 16-year-old boy who disappeared and went back 2 other times for other children. This was happening again and again. One agency placed 592 children with 120 sponsors. 400 children were shipped to a town where there's a meatpacking plant in Kansas. 400 children who, they had to come and claim that the sponsors had to claim that those children lived in that town. And we've seen the fake ID where you have one guy who is photoshopped in with a whole bunch of different children, and he's showing up and picking up at these kids one at a time. The Biden administration knew about it. They saw the same pictures we did, and they did nothing. There's 160,000 help complaints that were never investigated. I've launched now a criminal task force. We've opened up 500 criminal investigations and already brought 80 to court. So we are going to try to do everything we can. We're working with DHS to find these children, but the federal government under the Biden administration became the biggest facilitator for child abuse probably in the history, certainly in the history of our country.
Well, thank you. I was going to ask you, how are you going to hold these contractors and officials accountable, but I think you answered that question already.
We're already doing fingerprinting on every sponsor. We're doing DNA testing on every sponsor. We're doing income testing on every sponsor, and we're doing valid ID testing. Nobody gets a kid without showing that they are a family member.
Thank you. And I see my time has expired, so I yield back. Thank you for that excellent work.